Welcome. I'm Sherry Steinig. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Communications at Generations United. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Funding Intergenerational Programs, Strategies for Sustainability. Today, we'll be exploring strategies for funding intergenerational programs and building long-term sustainability with a panel of speakers from 4 of our recognized programs of distinction. You'll hear real-world examples and insights from people doing this hard work every day. Many of you probably know Generations United, but for those of you who may be new to us, we're a national nonprofit that strengthens practices and policies to benefit all generations. Our website, www.gu.org, hosts a database of more than 700 intergenerational programs along with free resources to support your work. One of the resources we encourage you to explore is our new Funding and Sustainability Hub. It brings together practical resources, tools, and examples to help you strengthen and sustain your intergenerational work. This is a dynamic resource that we will continue to grow in the future. This webinar and many of our intergenerational resources are made possible with support from the Eisner Foundation. We appreciate their support and the partnership as the U.S. co-lead of Global Intergenerational Week, which we are currently celebrating. Global Intergenerational Week is an annual campaign that highlights the impact of bringing people of all ages together to form meaningful relationships. This year, 14 countries are taking part, led by generations working together and the global executive team. You can get involved using the hashtag GIW26 and see what's happening around the world. Each day of the week focuses on different theme, from awareness to social connection to sustainability. And you can find more details on Global Intergenerational Week on Generations Working Together's website, and the link we'll put that into chat. There's still time to get involved and lots of ways to participate, from joining activities to sharing your work, connecting with others. And for our US partners joining us today, please share your events with us. We'll also put that link to our event form in chat. Before we move on, we'd love to learn a bit more about you and your work. We're going to launch a quick poll to get a sense of your primary source of funding for your intergenerational program. We'll give you a moment to respond. You might need to scroll down to see all of the options. And as we see the responses coming in, we'll give a couple more seconds for everyone to have a chance to respond. Okay, we still see that a couple folks are still participating. That's great. And I don't know if we went, we have more than half. We have about 65% of people participated. I don't know if we want to go ahead and we can share folks. Thank you for sharing. This really will help give some context to today's conversation and for our panelists to sort of know the experiences of who's in the Zoom today. Before we start, I want to cover just a few housekeeping items. The session is being recorded, and you will receive a link in your inbox later this week. We'll also post it on our website. Please take a moment to introduce yourself in chat. We'd love to see who's joining us today, where you're coming from. Also, keep an eye on chat. That's where we will be sharing links, more information about the programs that are featured today. If you have questions, please use the Q&A feature on Zoom. That's one of the bottoms down there at the bottom of your screen. The GU team is here to help, and we'll do our best to address your questions during the panel. And as a reminder, everything we share today is also available on our website. And then lastly, we'd love to invite you to stay connected and engaged with us. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and now TikTok. So with that, I am now thrilled to turn it over to Kristen Kiefer, Executive Director at Generations United. We're really excited to have her here with us today. Can take it away, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Sherry. I'm just having so much fun in the chat seeing who's here with us. It's just an honor to be with the group of people who are doing this work every day. As Sherry said, I'm Kristen Kiefer, Executive Director of Generations United. And my background is in policy and community practice. So I've spent much of my career working alongside programs like yours, navigating funding constraints, multiple systems, and real community needs at the same time. I came to Generations United because it offered a rare opportunity to bring together my experience in aging services with my work in education and community engagement, all aligned around a mission that recognizes how interconnected our lives are across generations. So I come to this conversation with a deep respect and admiration for the work you're doing and for what it takes to sustain it. Because the truth is, this field has never been more needed, and in many ways never been more tested. For decades, intergenerational practitioners have been quietly building something very, very powerful. You've been strengthening relationships, reducing isolation, supporting caregivers, building skills, creating belonging, often without the language or funding recognition that matches the impact you're making. At Generations United, we see this work not as a collection of programs, but as a field, one that is essential to how communities function and thrive. As one of our founders said at the very beginning of Generations United, America's generations have never needed one another as much as they do today. And that's even more true now than ever. We often say connection is not optional, it is foundational. And increasingly, we're naming what many of you have known through your work. Connection is prevention. When relationships across generations are strong and sustained, communities are more resilient, people are supported earlier, and systems don't have to work as hard to respond to crisis. That is what we at Generations United call prevention through connection. And it's not a new idea. It's what this field has been demonstrating for decades. But here's the shift we believe the field is ready for. Intergenerational work is not a nice to have. It is not an add-on. It is infrastructure. It is how we address caregiving gaps. It is how we reduce isolation and loneliness. It is how we build workforce pathways and community resilience. And when we position it that way, everything about funding begins to change. Because sustainability isn't just about finding the next grant. It's about making your work indispensable to the systems that already exist. When your work is clearly solving problems that systems are already funded to address, whether education, health, aging, workforce, you move from being funded if possible to funded because necessary. What we see across the country is that the programs that sustain themselves are not relying on one source. They're combining public funding, philanthropy, partnerships, and sometimes even earned revenue. But more importantly, they are aligning themselves to priorities that already matter. And I want to say this clearly. Many of you are already doing this. You are adapting. You are building partnerships. You are finding ways to make this work visible and valuable in your own communities. What's needed now is not for you to prove the value of intergenerational work. It's for us, together, to position it at the center of how systems are designed. That's why I'm especially excited for today's panel. You'll hear from leaders who are not just sustaining programs, they are evolving models, blending funding streams, and positioning their work in ways that last. They are doing this in real communities, under real constraints. If there's one idea I hope you carry with you, it's this. This work is not extra, it is essential. Connection is prevention. And when we design for it, we're not just funding programs. We're building the infrastructure that communities rely on to thrive. And Generations United is here to build that future with you and alongside you. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to our amazing Jamarl Clark, Assistant Director for our National Center on Grandfamilies. Jamarl?
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much. So good to be here this afternoon with you all. So first thing first, let me introduce myself because you all may be like, who is he? So I'm Jamarl D. Clark. I'm the Assistant Director of the National Center on Grandfamilies at Generations United. I've spent the better part of the last decade and a half building intergenerational programs from the ground up, including one of the first programs and DC connecting older adults with preschoolers around early literacy with Jumpstart for Young Children, and later building the Community Life Program at Plaza West, the first of its kind housing community in the District of Columbia for grandparents and relatives and close friends raising children. I've also had to figure out how to fund it all, which you all are here today. Working with national foundations, government agencies, corporate partners, to piece together the resources these programs need to survive. So the panelists you're about to hear from speak my language and will speak your language as well. So let's get right into introducing our panelists. So first one I'm going to introduce is Michelle Quiroga Diaz, leads programs at ONEGeneration, a multi-service organization in Los Angeles that integrates intergenerational programming across services for older adults, children, and families. Their work is supported through a mix of public funding, partnerships, and community-based initiatives. Welcome, Michelle. Next, we have Leah Bradley is the co-founder and executive director of Empowering the Ages, a community-based organization in Rockville, Maryland, focused on building meaningful intergenerational connections through partnerships, local programming, and community engagement. Welcome, Leah. Next, we have Trish Lopez, is the founder and CEO of Teeniors, a intergenerational program in Albuquerque, New York, that pairs teens with older adults for tech support through a fee-for-service model that has grown nationally. Welcome, Trish.
Thanks,
And
Jamarl.
then
And that's New Mexico, I have to tell you, not New York.
New Mexico. All right, New Mexico. And next we have Jen Kulik is the founder and CEO of SilverKite Community Arts in Seattle, Washington, which partners with organizations nationwide to deliver arts-based creative intergenerational programming that supports connection, engagement, and well-being across generations. Welcome, Jen. All right, so we have all our panelists up on the screen. So let's go ahead and dive in. So the first question is, can you start out, could each of you briefly share what your program does? I think everybody want to know who you are and what you do. And how is it funded today? So you see how that question just go right into that F word, funding. So who wants to kick us off? All right, Michelle.
Go ahead. All right. So at ONEGeneration, we're a nationally recognized community-based nonprofit, and we are in Los Angeles County. And as of December 2025, we are now in Ventura County. Our mission is to support and enrich the lives of older adults, children, and families. We do provide a comprehensive continuum of services, which include adult daycare, early childhood education, nutrition, transportation, case management, and caregiver support. We also operate 2 senior centers with more than 7,000 enrolled and active members. While we are an established aging services provider in these counties, what makes our model unique is that intergenerational programming is embedded across everything that we do. And it's primarily anchored in our licensed adult daycare and our infant, toddler, and preschool program, where every day our adults and children engage in daily structured activities. We also achieve our intergenerational mission and work through our Sages and Seekers program and our Grandparents as Parents program, as well as through our various partnerships that we do have in the community with local schools, universities, and colleges. From a funding perspective, we operate a very highly diversified model that includes Medi-Cal reimbursement for several of our programs, Older Americans Act funding. We have city and county contracts, state funding, and fee-for-service programs. We, of course, layer that with private foundation grants, corporate sponsorships, individual and in-kind donations, and earn revenue through several of our programs. And throughout the year, we have large-scale community-based events. We have a space where we can also host a farmer's market every weekend. And looking at our space, we became creative and work with the movie industry, being that we're in Los Angeles County, and we extend our space for filming and parking and base camp. So really creative ways, very diverse, very layered.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. Who would like to go next? Trish.
Hi, everyone. I am Trish Lopez. I run Teeniors. Teeniors are tech-savvy teens and young adults who help older adults learn technology through one-on-one customized coaching. So whether that's a tablet, a computer, a software, something in their home, our goal is to empower people to connect with their loved ones and engage with their community and the world through technology while providing paid, meaningful jobs for teens and young adults. So we pay our high schoolers $15 an hour. We pay our high school graduates $25 an hour. And we're based in New Mexico, although since COVID, we started helping people via video calls from around the country and around the globe. So when I first started, this was 10 years ago, 10 and a half years ago, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. Nobody was doing sustainable intergenerational programs regarding technology. In fact, I was looking for them because I didn't want to start something if that already existed. What existed were these one-off programs, like the Boy Scouts is helping Denver Senior Center this weekend or something like that. But I knew to make it sustainable, I would, one, want to pay the teens and young adults because I want to give them opportunities outside of like McDonald's. And two, I wanted there to just be that value in the work. So whether the person can afford to pay for it myself, because my mom
Mhm.
would not be able to afford it. I was like, let me start it as a small business because that's easier to do than starting a 501(c)(3) and see what we can do. That works in some places. New Mexico is one of the poorest states in the country. We're always neck and neck with Mississippi. And so some older adults can afford to pay, most cannot. So it was a year later that I started a nonprofit arm through a fiscal sponsor. And if y'all don't know what that is, it's basically an established 501(c)(3) that's vouching for you. They take in the grant money and the donations, and then that way you can apply for grants and all that, just like a 501(c)(3) would, and they hold that money and you kind of invoice them for the nonprofit work that you do. So it would be easy to convert to a 501(c)(3). It's just that a small business is so easy. That's kind of the way our society is structured because you invoice someone and they pay. If it goes with an older adult who can't afford to pay, then it goes through our nonprofit arm, and that's how we pay all the bills and the tenure. So what I have found is that we've had success working with our city governments, especially when you can finally get their attention and then get a contract with them annually. There are some older adults that I mentioned can't afford to pay. There are some senior centers and senior living communities who can afford to pay. And again, there are many who can't. Trying to think, foundation for sure, like applying for grants, that's always a thing. Government grants, so not just contracts with like your local governments, but also applying for maybe there's national grants that you can get, federal grants. I'm trying to think of anything else. One thing that I do wonder about sometimes is like, should we just like sell Teen Years bottles or Teen Years t-shirts? Because everyone loves our Teen Years t-shirts. These are bright yellow, neon yellow when the kids are wearing them. But what I find is that I spend so much on these t-shirts that I don't even know how to sell them and make any kind of money off that because they're almost 23 bucks a piece. So there's all kinds of ways to fund, and I can tell you guys right now, the work continues. I'm so excited that we celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year. We're really thriving. Lots of national press. We're nationally recognized and awarded regularly. And it's so freaking cool to have that attention and that recognition. And it is continuous work of like, how are we going to pay this? How are we going to pay for everything? So yeah, I'm just excited when I'm like, I know we can pay this like an admin assistant for the next 6 months, for the next year. Like that's kind of how I tend to look at it. So we can talk more about that. Thank you guys.
No, thank you so much, Trish. No, I appreciate that. And the t-shirt too. Well, I have to get one. Hold me to it. And then I like how Michelle, you hit on like how you leverage like the area that you're located in, right? With the industry and making that connection. So let's go to our other two panelists. All right. Leah?
Hi, I'm Leah Bradley. I'm Executive Director and co-founder of Empowering the Ages. We have been around for 6 years, and we are located outside of Washington, D.C. in Rockville, Maryland. Our organization is solely focused on intergenerational programming. We do that specifically through school readiness, community empowerment, and workforce development. So we work with youth ages 4 to 24, and in some cases also their families, as well as adults age 50 and over. So we work with adults and youth of varying physical and social emotional ability levels. In terms of the funding for our work, we, like ONEGeneration, are very varied in how we do that. We have individual donations, special events, foundations, corporate sponsors, program service fees, in-kind grants, as well as state, city, and local government. And I would say that in all of this, knowing your local landscape is very, very important. We are in Montgomery County, Maryland, which has a lot of nonprofits. There are thousands of nonprofits in our county. So that really affects the funding opportunities and being able to count or not count on any local county funding. So knowing your landscape and really who is your competition for the work that you're doing is really critical as you're going towards funding.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Leah. You said a magic word that I always get excited about that people forget about funding, in kind. In kind. Oh, and so thank you for giving us that background and the different diversity and revenue stream you all have. So, Jen.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jen Kulik. I'm the founder and CEO of SilverKite Community Arts. We are based in the Seattle area and have been around since 2013. And through our business's journey, we have really had to pivot many times in the funding realm. So excited to be here to talk a little bit about that today. So SilverKite works to address loneliness and social isolation through arts-based activities and arts engagement tools, training, and resources. So we have several legs of our business table, if you will. One is focusing on creative aging programs, so working primarily with older adults with different kinds of arts engagement opportunities. We do training and consulting for a variety of different kinds of arts and community organizations to help folks develop the skills to facilitate intergenerational programs and arts engagement opportunities. And then we also have arts resources. So we have two different products that we've developed. One is an arts engagement toolkit that's called a Spark Box, which is designed for a one-to-one kind of engagement opportunity. They've been used in a lot of different settings, skilled nursing communities, intergenerational spaces, etc. And then we have our programming leg where we offer programming for intergenerational and community spaces. So we differentiate between our intergenerational work, which is school-based or youth and older adult-based programming. And then community programs are programs that are open to everybody, kinship care, the community at large, families, whomever would like to sort of come in and join us for an arts engagement moment. We are in a huge transition here at SilverKite. We're actually moving to a new space on Monday of next week in a with an opportunity for us to be able to produce our own programming, which we haven't been able to do for many years. So we operate out of our office in Seattle, and we send teaching artists out into the community where they're facilitating intergenerational community programs or creative aging programs. So we're sort of out in the community. So in our interest and our desire to help the community connect with itself, we are opening a space where we're producing our own programs to create a third space opportunity for the community to come together, in addition to continuing our outreach programs. So in terms of funding, similar to everybody else, we have a variety pack of funding streams that we use. Right now, a large chunk of our funding comes from, it's called the Civil Monetary Penalty Fund, which is funding from Medicare, and each state has this pot of money. So look it up for your own state, where you can apply for funds to improve the quality of life for older adults in skilled nursing communities. So I know of several organizations that use those funds for intergenerational programs. We are doing one of those right now, and that funding has enabled us to work across the country. So we're now working in 9 states in addition to the state of Washington. So in addition to that, we, similar to Teeniors, we have a fiscal sponsor that we use occasionally when, a big juicy grant comes up and we want to apply for it. And so they help us with that as a pass-through opportunity. We also do a lot of pay for service work. I would say that's sort of our second tier of funding. And so the folks that are paying for our programs are senior living communities and schools, PTAs, et cetera, or a combination of both of those. We don't seek a lot of outside funding to help support our intergenerational programs at this time. However, we are finding that we need to diversify our funding streams in order to be able to do more programming for folks in the community that are unable to pay us for these services. We have been, for a majority of the company's life, been a business to business business. So we're an LLC and not a nonprofit organization. So what that means is we contract with businesses to provide our programming so that the people who participate are not having to pay. We really like this business model, but we're finding that senior living communities don't have the same resources as they have had in the earlier stages of the business. So we are turning to a business to consumer opportunity in our new space to provide our program to the community in hopes that they will pay and come. So that's a little bit about SilverKite and our funding model.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Jen. Appreciate that background. You said some buzzwords, pivot, and then also talking about business model of LLC, because we always talk about the 501(c)(3), right? And then we talked about the fiscal sponsor, which people actually forget about often. Now, if I had it my way and I was a funder, I'm not. I would give you all some money for the work you do because it sounds amazing. If I was, but today I'm just a moderator. But no, I want to dive in. Let's get a little bit deeper. Let's get more specific and the work that you all are doing, especially around funding. My next question, and it's open to everyone, is what has worked particularly well in sustaining your program and what has mattered most beyond just securing grants? What has particularly worked well in sustaining and what has mattered most beyond just securing grants?
I'd like to just jump in and say that in terms of what has worked really well is remembering that whoever you're going to money for, whether it be a foundation, a local government organization, whatever it might be, is they're looking for a desired outcome and they're not necessarily as focused on the process. So you can get really creative with who you're looking to ask for money from, because intergenerational might be your strategy, but it might not be the reason that you're applying for that pot of money.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good point. Desired outcomes, less on the processes.
And for ONEGeneration, really, our most effective strategy is embedding intergenerational programming into existing funding services. It's not a separate program or initiative. It is at the heart of what we do. It is our mission. And with that, it is part of our staff's core training as well. And as we bring on families, prospective families for our childcare program, even for our adult daycare program, that is what we're upfront about, that both adults and children will have an intergenerational experience every day that they're with us. What has also made that particular intergenerational program very effective is our space. The fact that we have a designated site whereby it makes it easy for children of our childcare program and our adult daycare participants to come together. And we're very fortunate to have that. But we think about approaching to foundations. Our intergenerational program is a funding differentiator, right? So it speaks to innovation in certain programs, and that is what we look to leverage, certainly.
Thank you, Michelle.
I would say on our side a couple of points here. First, having conversations with community leaders outside of the program that you are operating, so that they know what you're doing, have an eye on it, and then it becomes a part of the community. I often joke about how our dream is to sort of work our way out of a job by creating these programs that people love so much that they want to continue them, even if funding is not there. So, in terms of sustainability, I think it's really important to, if you have an outside facilitator that is facilitating an intergenerational program, giving staff members or constituents and leaders and your community partners an opportunity to learn from you as well, because if they buy in, they can also champion for additional funding for future programs or house things in their space. I love what you said, Michelle, about having a space there. But if a community partner really owns this thing and feels like this is their program instead of an outside thing coming in and then leaving, I think is really important. Another thing that we really think about is the principle of nothing for us without us. So having conversations with the program participants in various stages of its development to find out what do they really need and want, and how can we meet a need and in the interest of our partners so that we can deliver really successful and important and impactful programs, I think is also really important. And then the third thing that I think is just want to add to this conversation is that we incorporate sharings or celebrations at the end of our programs. And I think that that is really important to invite people from, other parts of the community to come in and see and learn about what's happening. Because the more people know about this work and see its impact, the more that they themselves will buy in and want to champion the program. So I think it's about relationship building. I think it's about listening. And I think it's about providing opportunities for people to really gain an interest in the program.
Thank you, Jen. Trish?
I would agree with what all these women are saying. I think I'd like to speak to the people who might be listening who are new to whatever your idea is. If you're in that idea stage, then there was some inspiration for the idea. And so make sure you get clear on that idea so that you can sort of pitch it. If someone gives you 5 seconds, you can pitch it in 5 seconds. If they give you 30, you can pitch it in 30, go a little longer. And if they give you 5 minutes, you can pitch it in 5 minutes. So, for example, the inspiration behind Teeniors was my mom. And I won't go into all that now, but it's just she struggled adapting to technology in this increasingly digital world we're living in. And I could not meet that need. I was a new mom myself. My brothers were busy, everybody was working. I was like, dang, I wish there was a kid in the neighborhood that we could just send to her place to help her recover her password or whatever it is. So there's that idea stage, and you want to make sure that you know that story so well that you like it's just kind of memorized, it's ingrained in you, so you can say it to anyone who will listen. And then there's, to me, the try it stage. So for me, that looks like going to senior centers, paying kids out of my pocket. Will you help these people learn their smartphone? I don't even know if anyone's going to sign up. I'm going to put flyers up at this senior center, and you guys will be there to help them one on one if they need help. And it turned out we had a line out the door that day, which was very cool. But how to pay for it is really important because even if you're like me, where in the beginning I'm like, I just want to see this exist. Well, lo and behold, my partner and I, my daughter's father and I didn't work out. And it's like, well, now there's not a double income. You would have to find a way to pay for it. But even if that hadn't happened, I know so much more now, almost 11 years later, after founding Teen Years, than I did then, which is that even if I were independently wealthy, even if I didn't need the money, you still want to have money coming in. Because if I
Mhm.
die tomorrow, the program dies because other people may not have that security. So you want to have it sustainable. One of the few nonprofits I've seen that makes tiny, tiny budget for themselves, never pays themselves, is the League of Women Voters in here in New Mexico, Central New Mexico. All of these amazing women volunteer. They recruit the next board as they exit. They are really, really powerful older women that have a sense of civic duty and have sustained this very well. But even them, even with taking no money, even not doing lunches, things like that, they need some kind of funding, like to get the word out, to do their annual newsletters, all that stuff. Feedback is really important. So if you are already in the try it stage or doing it stage of your program, make sure you're getting evaluations from every single person, not just the people you're helping, like the older adults or teens, but also your own team. So, like, I'll write an evaluation for my team every year, and I let them respond anonymously. I let them do it over email because sometimes it's not comfortable for people to do face to face. If you were to quit tomorrow, what would the reason be, hypothetically? Do you feel like you get personal enrichment from this job, not just sort of the paycheck? Like I'll put this in different words, but that's essentially, I'm trying to get to the meat of what might be going on with them if they're not happy. Thankfully, I always get 5-star reviews from our clients and our team, but I try to ask the real questions like that so that I make it approachable for the clients or the team to let me know whether things are working for them or not. And I guess the last thing I would say is getting the word out. Social media, we all know about, so you can choose which platforms work for you or not. Press releases to your local journalism, your local news outlets, even if it's a tiny little village newspaper, those can be really, really meaningful. Um, Google reviews and Facebook reviews, that's something I rarely, if ever, have done. And I don't think it's ethical when we say, we'll give you a discount if you give us a review. Like, I can't stand when I see that at salons and restaurants. But I do think, if you send out a newsletter, I use MailChimp to send out a monthly newsletter for Teeniors. Consider saying, if you've worked with us before, we would love your honest, candid feedback. And here's a Google review link, here's a Facebook review link. And then things like tables at community events for getting the word out. I would agree with Jen in that the community members that know about your work, they're often the ones that bring a grant to our attention or bring something to our attention. Just one man that showed up at a senior center one time, he's now a quarterly contributor of $500 a quarter just to our work. And he only saw us one time ever. And so I make it a point to thank him regularly. That's another thing. Remembering to thank the people that help you, whether it's money or not. We tend to all think about money being like the number one. And that's why I'm trying to go into these other things for you, because obviously we all need that resource, but it's just one energy stream that contributes to the success of your work.
And I think building off of that, the most important is the relationships that you're building along the
Yeah.
way. And you don't know where those relationships are going. So whether, like
Hmm.
Trish said, it's because someone was a client once and they really needed your service and they want to become a regular donor, or someone volunteers for you and then they bring 5 friends to volunteer with you the next time. So I would say being able to really build relationships with individuals as well as those who could be larger donors is really, really important. And also, the other piece to all of this is patience. Relationships take a long time to build, and you will get turned down for grants 1 or 2 or 3 times before you
Mhm.
get that first grant. And so, knowing that what you're doing, as Trish said, you're doing for a reason, and there's your why behind it, just extreme patience is critical to be successful in this work.
Can I
Yeah.
just quickly add to that, Leah? I would love that
Hmm.
point about patience because I'll tell you guys who are listening, in the beginning, I would get so excited if anybody wanted a meeting with me about anything. And I do think that excitement is valuable and worthwhile. It's just that you have to detach yourself from the outcome. Like I would meet with governmental agencies where there's a whole team and they're like, we're really excited to have you teach cybersecurity and cyber safety to seniors. I was like, this is great. Okay, so then I'll wait to hear from you. Never heard from them. Follow up, never heard. Follow up, never heard. And it's like I'd spend a day and a half preparing for that meeting. Nothing ever happened. The longer I've done this, the more I'm like, you take every meeting that you can, and then you detach yourself from the outcome. And then when and if it comes in, it's a pleasant surprise. But yeah, patience is definitely key.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
And to add, I love everything that was said, and
Me
I
too.
would, never underestimate the power of social media stories and uplifting the impact that we do. Funders respond to outcomes, and so also having very important data that measures the impact of your programs while also increasing visibility of intergenerational models and programs through all your social media. And yes, it does bring in the community to support and create new pathways for funding. So social media and measurable outcomes funders respond to.
Yeah,
I want to
Jen.
just quickly share a resource. If you have an LLC, you've started a small business and are not running a nonprofit organization, you can turn to the Small Business Association. They have tons of resources for small businesses. And one of the things that we've utilized is something that's called the SCORE program, which I don't remember what the acronym means, but anyway, we get a volunteer business leader from the community who works with us individually as many sort of times as we need them to sit down and talk about what is a business problem or issue, and also how do we navigate the loan world, and how do we find some additional funding for these programs. So I found that our SCORE mentor has been enormously helpful. I've come to him many times and said, help me find some money, and he's been able to do that, which has been great.
Thank you. No, thank you all. You all can do the pen. Yeah, you all don't need me. But it made me think about when you all were talking, it made me think about when I was running the Jumpstart for Young Children program with the older adults and the preschoolers, about how I had to do a newspaper ad, how I had to do an event to celebrate and invite the council member to come, how you have to also educate those people in your organization sometimes to understand the work you're doing from a programmatic standpoint. Then how I was working with a big corporate sponsor that said, well, I'm only giving you money for 2 years. You got to show me what you're working with. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to give it to you for 3 years. You're like, yes, so you all really hit on those points. But I do have a question is, well, as we talk about this word intergenerational, can you address strategies for getting buy-in from child serving organizations or senior serving organizations? Um, you know, in ways to like collaborate in a meaningful way. Because, it's like you want to go over here for this one thing, but you're trying to pitch intergenerational, but they're like, hey, we're focused on just children, right? We want to go over here, but we're just focused on seniors, but I also have the young people component as well. Can anyone just touch on that? Like any strategies for getting through that?
Jamarl, to clarify your question, are you saying when you know a place like, for example, a childcare center, which you assume is interested in helping children,
Hmm.
you like how it's seeking how to partner with them, do you mean?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Um, I can speak to that in terms of working with older adult, like senior centers, senior living communities. I find that I agree with Jen. A lot of them don't have the same funding that they used to. A lot of them don't necessarily see the value of the funding, like for whatever their program is. Like I remember going to one that was private, sort of pitching what we do. And she was like, there are people that need help with their phones, but we really like our arts and crafts. And so we prioritize arts and crafts, for example. Um, and sometimes it doesn't even have to do with your organization. Sometimes it's that activity coordinator making a decision about funding. Like they're not polling the residents of that senior living community, for example. So I think it's in a lot of ways, funding is often just like throwing a lot out there, applying for a lot of things, reaching out to a lot of people and seeing who's interested because there's always a strategy, but you don't even know to go to that strategy unless if you only had one contact, like one lead, then I would probably have the time to work for 2 days on a strategy. But I think just it's kind of like I was talking about at the beginning, when you know your inspiration, you know what you can do, and then you have the feedback from the clients or your team or whomever it is to back it up, then you can easily reach for whatever this person asks, I'm prepared. I'm ready to do it. And I think that the initial meeting, you'll get right away whether they are into your program or whether they're not, whether this serves them. And then as they say, okay, tell me more, then you've got that in your back pocket ready to talk about, oh, well, let me tell you about the impact this has on the younger people we work with and on the older people we work with. Here's a recent quote, or whatever it is. And you can just go, you can pull from any of those things that you know about your work.
Hmm. Thank you so
I
much.
I think also in using Trish's example there and trying to figure out who's really in charge of the budget in a certain community, what I have learned is that sometimes if you can get someone on the marketing team to be interested in your work as
Mhm.
opposed to someone on the activities team, you're going to have more luck because the marketing team's budget is higher. Um, and then the other piece that I was thinking with this is the outcome is really important. So we, for instance, have worked with a local school system and we said we can help with kindergarten readiness. So then that intrigued them because that is an area that the school knows they need to improve. And so when we come to them and say, we can help with something that is near and dear to your heart, our strategy is using older adults, and this is why it's our strategy. But in the end, not only are the youth going to have this older adult in their life and have established the relationship, they're also going to gain valuable communication skills and list out
Mhm.
everything they're going to gain from our program that we have seemed to be more effective when you're starting with one generation.
Yes, I agree with
Mhm.
Leah. And I would also say, and this is also about like the point earlier about patience, that community that I think all of us, Michelle and Leah and Jennifer and I are talking about, it is so critical. Like the community members that know you and love you and building a relationship with them is just as important as anybody else. Because for 6 years, we were pitching the city of Albuquerque about, can we please be a part of your fiscal budget for next year? Like, here's what we're doing. We're already
Mhm.
working in your senior centers. It's just that we're doing it for free. And we had such an amazing presentation of why they should be supporting this. Never, never, never did they. They never had the money. They never had the money. And then a woman who attended one of our free events said, you don't get funding from the city? And she called the mayor's wife herself. She had some political contact. And lo and behold, the next day I get a call and I didn't realize you weren't being funded. Oh, we would love to fund you. And that's how we got our first contract with the city. But that was 6 years into starting Teeniors and 6 years after asking them. On the plus side, again, being prepared, I already had my proposal of what I pitched to them every year that
Mhm.
they would continuously reject. So now it was easy to like pull that out because the mayor's wife was the one that called me. And I'm like, actually, yeah. So we've been pitching every year, hoping to get on your fiscal budget. So there's just yeah, there's so much to be said for
Yeah,
all the things these women are saying.
I know that one person, that one person make a difference. You're like, oh, that's all it took. Michelle, I think you was, do you want to chime in?
I would agree wholeheartedly regarding measurable outcomes and sharing those stories and what those impacts are, whether it's increased socialization, cognitive well-being, emotional well-being, all of those uh, markers. We want to share that with individuals. And we're at the intersection of aging services, children, youth, families. That allows you a wide range of funders as well. So it's a very unique position to be in and exciting times.
I just want to add a couple of things here. First is I have found that sometimes it's really challenging to write a grant for a youth focused funding program for an intergenerational program. And sometimes they're like, no, this is not for only youth. We only want to focus on youth. And the same thing we found in trying to get funding on the older adult side of the dyad. So what we've found is that has increased, those no's have increased for those reasons over the years in a different larger capacity there. What our approach in having these conversations with grant funders as well as community partners and so on, and reaching out to schools or senior living communities is approaching it with what can we do to help you? What problem can we solve? Is it literacy on the youth side? Is it school readiness, as Leah was just sharing the example? Is it that teens need employment through the tech work that you're doing, Trish? And then on the senior living side, okay, so you're experiencing that your residents aren't coming out of their rooms. What can we do to encourage them to do that? So I really think approaching these conversations, and they have to be different for different communities that you're working with, could be approached with the question of what problems do you have and how can we solve them? And here's the evidence from our past programs to show you that yes, this works and it's awesome. It has a big impact. And here is the outside research also that helps support the evidence to get your buy-in there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. All these strategies and tips. I have paper everywhere. I'm taking notes. I feel like I'm in a master class myself. And I'm also having moments. This is the hardest part of moderating. I'm having moments when it's just like tapping on my foot underneath my desk. Like, yes, I know. I understand what you're saying. I get it. Time has flown by so quick. I kid you not. I feel like we need a part two, or we need to have more coffee and tea time about this topic. But I do, before as we wrap up, I do want to ask each of you, is there anything that you want to leave the group? There's over 200 people that are on this webinar today. Like any strategies, any advice, any wisdom, as we're navigating an interesting landscape of funding right now. I just want to give you all a couple minutes to address our audience. Trish?
I'll jump in. I would say for all of you who are starting out, or for you're at the midpoint, or you're already successful and you're just trying to continue to that success, there's so many ideas and there's so many things, and all of us on this call are the same way. We have a lot that we want to do and we can't always get to it. So maybe set for yourself, just do one thing per week. If it's just contacting a new, in my case, senior living community or something, just wanted to let you guys know about Teeniors. Would it be possible to get a meeting with your team? And they may say no. Again, we detach ourselves from the outcome, but just one attempt at something per week. The other thing I would say is, in terms of Teeniors, everybody's like, oh, teens helping seniors. I would say I have been doing this now for almost 11 years. And so I know for certain the main service we provide is not tech support. It is human connection. And the level to which we recognize that is the level to which we continue to succeed, because we have people crying after their sessions saying, oh my God, I didn't know anybody would help us and not yell at us. You welcomed me the moment I walked in. I didn't feel stupid or condescended to. Thank you so much for what you're doing here for people like me. And so one thing I guess I would leave with is just from a technology standpoint, as a tip for those of you who are helping older adults or helping your own parents or anything like that, and this goes of anything that you're tutoring in, not just technology, let them hold the device, let them push the buttons, and you point and direct. And that's why most of us can't be teachers because I was not able to have that patience for my mom. Weirdly, I can have it for a stranger very easily. I'm like, oh, I got nowhere else to be. Like, you can ask the same question 17 times. But with my mom, I'd be like, Mom, I've started this 6 times. Can I just, here, let me just do it for you. There you go. And that's what most of us tend to do. That's why we're not great teachers. And it's usually good to get that 1 degree of separation, not an immediate loved one helping you with the thing. So I would just say, remember that, like, let them do the work, let them do the learning when it comes to technology stuff. And yeah, I think everyone here would say the same too, that for us, for sure, it's all about human connection.
Thank you, Trish.
And I would say as my final statement is focus on the relationships that you're building. We didn't talk a lot about individual donors, but making sure you're doing at least 3 warm touches for every ask of a donor, so that you want to make sure when you are building those relationships with individuals that you are demonstrating that you care about them and you want to be part of their lives and you want them part of your organization. And you do that by warm touches so they hear from you when not just when you're asking for money.
Thank you, Leah. Michelle.
ONEGeneration, what's really shaped our approach is mission alignment, mission first, embedding programs into existing services. So it's not an afterthought, it's not a special initiative, it is who we are and what we do. Of course, diversifying funding streams, and then invest in staff training as well. Just as we want the community to buy in, our funders to buy into the model, we need our staff to really understand and embrace the approach of intergenerational programming and the benefits of it. So investing in our staff.
Okay. Jen?
I would say I loved what you all were saying about mission alignment and connections and human connection and relationship building. Yes, and I really do believe that intergenerational relationships and connections will change this world. And because of that, I think it is our role to normalize them so that it becomes such an important part of everyday interaction in every part of our community.
Thank you. I want to thank our panelists so much. Human connection, mission alignment, invest in staff training, 3 warm touches, individual donors. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation with you all. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for those that you work with. I'm excited. Trish, I know you're going to send me the link for a t-shirt after this. Appreciate it. But no, to wrap us up, we've heard from a range of approaches from community-driven efforts to more complex funding models, but some clear patterns around relationships, partnerships, and using existing assets. I'll turn it back over to Sherry to share tools and resources to support your next steps. Thank you so
Yes.
much, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you all to our panelists. And before people hop off, we're going to launch a evaluation poll. So while we're closing out, if you can complete that for us. So I want to thank our speakers so much for sharing your time, your insights, your experiences with us today. This has been a phenomenal panel. And I just greatly learned a lot, greatly appreciate everyone's time. Thank you to Jamarl for moderating today. Such a pleasure when we get to introduce all of you to the talented team at Generations United. And thank you to Kristen for kicking us off, even while battling a cold. We're grateful to her vision and leadership. Just a reminder, session has been recorded. So if you registered for the event, you're on the call, you will receive a link to the recording later today. It'll also be shared on our website. It'll be in the Funding and Sustainability Hub, so you can get more information. We encourage you to keep the Global Intergenerational Week momentum going. The campaign runs through April 30th, and it happens again next year too. So celebrate this year, plan for next year. There's still plenty of ways to get involved before you join the conversation online using the hashtag GIW26. Again, thank you all for being here today, for all you do to strengthen connections across generations. We hope to see you again soon, and enjoy the rest of Global Intergenerational Week. Thank you.